here we are back on the RS2 again. So last time we got it started up for the first time, all sounded good. Obviously couldn't run it too long and there's no coolant system yet. So time to get that sorted today. It's a bit of a longer video today. I tried to go into a bit more detail as to what I was up to, explaining stuff a bit more, how it all goes together, some of the interesting bits that are on it, because they are a bit funky, these old cars. And we'll start off here by getting the exhaust on that's missing, a few other bits and bobs underneath the car, such as this bit here, which is the oil temperature sensor. So the oil pump that came from the engine builder just had a blank in it, as I guess some don't have the temp sensor. So got that plumbed in, all good. So once it's running a bit more, we'll get the oil temp on the dashboard. Got the alternator hooked up, so it was charging all good, but that'll come up in a later video. There's a bit of an issue with that, but we'll get that sorted. And the exhaust, so there's a bit of a battle on that. Had to knock all the studs out, but it does sort of fit up, so until we sort something else, it'll do for now. So yeah, gonna carry on now, and I'll hand over to Live Me for a little bit where we're explaining some of the coolant system and all that sort of stuff and where it all goes. Alright, so here we are on the build up now that it's run for the first time. All sounded good, so get the radiator pack on, intercooler, rest of the piping, so obviously we can run it a bit longer, get it up to temp and everything, and check everything again. I've took this front like headlight bracket corner off. You can see this one's on here, wraps around the top and down the side. I've took it off this side because this is quite a busy area with pipes. There's the N75 for the boost control, and for the wastegate control, and then you've got your recirc valve, little line for that, and then there's another boost pipe that has to come in here, this bottom one, and some aircon lines as well. So yeah, quite a busy area. So with that bracket out of the way, it's a lot nicer to work on. So gonna get those bits built up now, and then once that's sorted, get that headlight bracket back on, and then the crash bar, it's not a lot to it really, it's quite flimsy. The crash bar that has a boost pipe inside of it and out there, that can go back on with the auxiliary radiator, which is this one here. It's just a little extra one they have on the higher output, the higher performance models. Obviously it's not looking too great, but for now the original radiators are going back on just so we can get it run up. See, there's the original coolant rad with plastic end tanks. So ideally down the line a bit, once we've run it a bit and everything's fine, spend a bit more money on some alloy radiators, possibly do away with the little secondary one, as a lot of the alloy end tank radiators you get tend to be thicker, so you get the same amount of cooling capacity as the original one and the little front mounted one if you just run one of the bigger alloy ones. And obviously it simplifies the coolant system a bit because you've not got some extra lines going to the extra radiator, and obviously that's another potential leak point. So but that's for down the line when we end up ripping it apart again because there's some other issue, but all to come. So yeah, I'm gonna carry on, get this corner built up for now. Well, all the piping anyway, got all the pipe work done and the airbox back in. All right, so that's the intake pipe work all sorted. Like I said, quite busy, but it all does fit in eventually, just have to find the way. Aircon pipe on there as well. Big old nut for that, as a 32mm, biggest that I had in my spanner set, so luckily it wasn't any bigger, I guess. And also, very exciting, well, for a moment it wasn't very exciting, there was this P-clip that holds the aircon pipe that had rusted, tragically. So I had a quick look in the stores, and lo and behold, there was a set of brand new P-clips, all different sizes. so I've got a new clip on there, so that's very nice. Got rather excited about that, but never mind. It's back on as it should be, on its little retaining clip. All good. So yeah, so I'm going to get that bumper corner headlight carrier bracket back on this corner, and then head over to this side, have a bit of a tidy up. Oh, that's another thing. I'll replace some bolts here as well. They were in this sort of situation with a couple of hex heads with washers that were too small, so they were falling inside the hole, as you can see on that one. So just a pair of matching 13mm with some proper size washers, so much better. Going to do the same on the other side, and then sort a few more bits out. Crash bar is on. Got the aux radiator up there. I did give it a quick blast over with a bit of black paint, so it looks a little bit less rubbish. Obviously it is still kind of rubbish, but as I say, it'll be alright for now. Just going to get the intercooler mounted up now. Just thought I'd show the difference between the Wagner Evo intercooler and the original. And we've also got this, which is known as the Mark H mod for the boost pipe. So the standard intercooler slots on just here. Well, all the Wagner one does as well. And the original way that this pipe seals into the intercooler, if we go and have a look at the original, you can see there's a little groove in there. And the way it was done originally is there was just a rubber O-ring that went in there, and then the other pipe slots inside. Now that caused quite a common boost leak, just from as this pipe was being fit, or the intercooler was being fit onto this pipe, it snagged the O-ring and you end up with a boost leak. So there's this mod, which is just a little bit of silicone that pops on there and seals instead, known as the Mark H mod. Now this was already done on the original intercooler, but I've actually, and there was another silicone joiner on the Wagner one, but I am nicking the original as it's just got a little bit more meat on it, so a bit more space to get the clamps on. And then for the sake of comparison, this is our nice Wagner intercooler that we've got going on. So I mean, the original isn't terrible, it's still got nice alloy end tanks and it's a reasonable size, but the Wagner does make use of all the space that's available. You see it's quite a bit thicker, a touch taller, and you can see the size of the runners as well. So the bits between the fins are quite nice. So like I said, we're not really looking at tuning it, but for hot summer days and stuff, if we are thrashing it around a bit, then at least it will keep it a bit happier. So yeah, gonna go ahead and get the intercooler on now, and then I'll be back with you. Well, that was quite the ordeal, but the intercooler is on. Jiggery and pokery doesn't really start to describe it, but I've eventually got everything fitting. So I had some issues with the oil cooler, so I've swapped that now. It was on this bracket, it was mounted forward. I've now swapped it so it's further back because the cooler lines were fouling on the boost pipe down here. So I've got all that clear now and it all sort of fits a bit better. This line could definitely do with being a bit shorter, so that's something to look at getting done at some point, but I don't have the tools for these, making the swages on these AN lines, so I'll have to have a look at how that will get sorted. But there we go, the intercooler is on. This boost pipe was a bit of a fight as well, very tight. I remember the original one being very tight coming off, but I think this end tank is ever so slightly bigger, but I got it eventually. With did have to make a little nick in the end of the pipe just to open it up a tiny bit, but it all seems like it's on there nice now. So next up will be the rad pack, getting the rest of the coolant lines in. And then we should be pretty much there mechanically wise. And then obviously there's a bumper missing and some headlights to get it looking nice. But yeah, most of the way there. Noisy workshop, so we're back onto voiceover Andrew. We've got the radiators mounted up now, all the pipe work in. See the bottom of the condenser there, which sits in front of the radiator, and unfortunately a bit of a coolant leak, as you can see. It was two coolant leaks actually, one which now appears to be sorted, but this was the main one. On the back of the cylinder head there's this little plastic flange which in its 30 years of age is unfortunately now leaking, so I have got a metal one on the way to replace that, which hopefully won't suffer from the same warping issues that one did and should stop that leak. Coming back round to the other side of the engine again, was one of the other coolant leaks that arose, which is the top radiator hose that goes onto the coolant manifold that sits just below the inlet manifold. It's that rubber hose, bit of moving around and tightening, and it seemed to stop, so hopefully that'll be okay for now. And again, the top of the condenser here, where I just gave it a bit of a spruce up and a bit of a rub down to get some of the flaky paint off, and a bit of fresh paint just to get it looking a bit fresher, so not looking too bad. Sounding pretty good now, giving it a bit of a run to get the coolant hot, get it all bled up. Obviously there's those couple of dribbles that we've got going on, but we can at least get some heat in everything, see how everything's doing, check there's no other leaks on, like we're getting the power steering system bled up here. That all seemed alright after we'd topped it up. A bit more going in now, do dribble a bit, do apologise, not everyone's perfect. But all seems to be good. No leaks apart from the little coolant ones that we're on about, so can live with that. And then a couple of other bits to tidy up. There's this little bracket here for the top of the supports the top of the rad pack, and I couldn't bring myself to put it back on in that crusty state, so gave it a bit of a clean back as much as I could and a bit of fresh paint, and look at that, like new again. It's even got speed holes in it from factory. That's how you know it's a real sporty car. There we are at this point, looking pretty much like a RS2 engine bay should. There's a couple of heat shields and covers missing, so there's a big cover that should sort of go over the front of the rad pack to guide the air a bit better. Gonna see if we can get one of those, of course. There's our aux radiator with a bit of paint on it, not looking too awful. And the Wagner down the bottom, nice little upgrade, but it is used, so it's looking a little bit tired, but I'm sure once it's got a bumper in front of it you won't notice too much. Headlights and bumper to go on, sort out some more wiring, but not looking too bad. Before we get the headlights and the bumper and everything sorted properly though, there is a slightly more pressing issue, which is unfortunately the alternator. It is charging, however the bearings in it seem to have failed and are rather noisy, so I'll just cut away to the audio of that so you can hear it whining away. Not sounding healthy at all, so definitely something that needs addressing next. I've actually got the alternator off now and starting to strip it, so I'll be doing a full video of the repair and refurb of that. If you don't find alternators particularly interesting, then I can't blame you, but if there is something in particular on the car or the rebuild that you'd like to see in one of the videos, then do drop a comment and I'll try and make sure that I cover it. Do subscribe if you want to see when the latest updates come out, and thank you ever so much for watching. Have a good one.